The Vietnam War occurred in present-day Vietnam, Southeast Asia. It represented a successful attempt on the part of the Democratic Republic of Vietnam and the National Front for the Liberation of Vietnam to unite and impose a communist system over the entire nation. Opposing the DRV was the Republic of Vietnam, backed by the United States. The war in Vietnam occurred during the Cold War and is generally viewed as an indirect conflict between the United States and the Soviet Union, with each nation and its allies supporting one side. The Vietnam War first began in 1959, 5 years after the division of the country by the Geneva Accords. Vietnam had been split into two, with a communist government in the north and a democratic government in the south. The communist government started a guerrilla campaign in South Vietnam led by Viet Cong units, with the goal of uniting the country under communist rule. The United States, seeking to stop the spread of communism, trained the Army of the Republic of Vietnam, ARVN, and provided military advisors to help combat the guerrillas.
At the time I was serving my required 5 years of military service because I was drafted when I graduated from college, and they required 5 years of military service because I went through pilot training, and that requires more time than just going through the Army enlisted program. When I graduated from college, a draft was imposed in 1962. And I had already gotten a job with American Can Company as a manager trainee. And they told me that if I was drafted, I could come back after the war and get a job with them. But they required me to go do my duty. And so when I came out of the, what was the question?
How did you feel when you were drafted?
Oh, so when I was drafted, I was kind of looking forward to it because I was accepted for pilot training and officer training school. And I knew it was going to be something different. And at that point in time, the Vietnam War was just starting to get important in terms of the severity of the requirement to go there. Pilot training was very disciplined, rigorous, and the pressure was always to go through the classes, pass the check rides. The initial solo in jet aircraft was quite demanding and was very scary. You had to take off and make 3 touch-and-go landings in the pattern and a full stop without anybody with you. And that was the first time that I flew solo in a jet aircraft. Flying solo, once you learn how to do it and feel confident, it's very liberating. You feel very free. You feel like it's one of the most fun things you can ever do. And I really enjoyed flying solo.
One period of relaxation developed in the early 1970s and became known as détente, a French word meaning release of tensions. It was hoped that the new relationship would herald a permanent improvement in relations between the US and Soviet Union, but differences in outlook led to an increasing number of conflicts. The Soviet invasion of Afghanistan in 1979 effectively closed that chapter of the Cold War. The activities of President Ronald Reagan returned tensions to a fever pitch.
I was surprised you asked to interview me because I had limited wars in the Vietnam War.
Mm-hmm.
And I was fighting actually another war, and it was a war called détente, which was between the Russians and the United States. Both countries had armed themselves with nuclear weapons and rockets with potential of destroying each other. And so the government at that time built up a huge force that was on standby to launch rockets and airplanes and weapons against Russia if they ever launched their large nuclear force against us. And so the power between the two countries was equal, and each one would not start the war because the immediate after effects of a nuclear launch by either country would force total retaliation by the other country. And it was kind of a silly standoff situation, but nonetheless, my job was as a KC-135 refueling pilot was to help the bombers reach their targets in case this war ever started. So my job was to sit on alert a lot of the time and go up for training flights, occasionally check rides, and fly this KC-135. We never flew in the military into Russia. That would be an act of war.
Okay.
There were some people that did go in. They were flying spy airplanes, like Gary Power was flying a U-2 at 50,000 feet. When he was shot down over Russia by the Russians, and it caused an international incident,
Mm-hmm.
everybody was upset about that because that was something that wasn't ever supposed to be known or happen. Many overflights at altitudes where their rockets couldn't reach, from 50 to 60,000 feet or higher, to take pictures of their nuclear capabilities and rocket deployments and things like that. That wasn't something that was publicly known at that time until this guy, Gary Powers, was shot down doing that job.